I'm Evelyn McDonald. I'm the CEO at Scottish Edge. I'm also joined by Jack Proctor, who is the marketing manager at Scottish Edge. If you're looking around the room and you're in doubt who's in the Edge team, we're the ones with the Christmas jumpers on. So hopefully that we can stand out in that way. But just to say a big thank you for joining us today. This is the first time we've run a Regional Edge competition. So it's also the first time that we've run a Regional Edge application workshop. So we'll be covering as many things as we've thought of so far, but there may be things that we haven't thought of. There may be questions that you're going to ask us today that we're still working out the answers to. As you've probably picked up, this is a pilot, and therefore we have worked out as much as we can behind the scenes. But as always happens with a pilot, sometimes it's in the doing and the delivering that you start to answer the questions that you have as you work your way through. So because this is the first time we've ever done this, I would quite like it if you could ask me questions as you go along. Now, some of you will be happy to do that. You'll be happy to interrupt me or to put your hands up. For those of you that aren't quite so comfortable about that, you can put the questions in the chat and Jack will answer them as we go along. Or if we don't get a chance to answer all the questions in the chat, Jack and I will answer those questions at the end of the sessions. But really what we're hoping for today is that we can give you the information you need to make a decision as to whether or not you want to apply for Regional Edge. So you may be coming on thinking, I'm not sure at this stage. Hopefully by the end of this workshop, we will have given you the information you need to take that decision as to whether or not you're going to progress with the application or perhaps wait and apply at a later date or apply to a Scottish Edge competition. So I'm hoping that by the end, you feel you've got the information that you need. Now, as I've mentioned, we're lucky to have some of our regional partners on the call as well. And so in some cases, I may pass the questions to them because they'll be in a better position to answer the questions that are particularly pertaining to the regions. So I don't know if our regional partners who are on the call want to introduce themselves and say a few words. Kat, obviously I can spot you at the moment.
Hello, I think I've just about got my headphones sorted. Apologies.
I can hear you okay.
Good. So hello everybody, I'm Kat Ward. I'm part of the Elevator team and we're working with the Edge team on delivering the competition in Dundee and Angus, and it's lovely to see some familiar faces on. So lovely to see all of you actually, but it's lovely to see people that I know as well. So nice to meet you all.
Okay, that's great. And I think we've got Caroline on the call from Highlands Enterprise. Caroline, not sure if you can hear me, if you want to say hello. Oh, not yet. So
can you see me?
Yes, I can.
Sorry, we have a bit of an issue where Zoom's controls, where Zoom's concerned, so I apologise for that. So yeah, Caroline McLeod and I work with High's Innovation Team, and we're delighted to be hosting a collaborative project with Edge to look for a regional competition in our region. So pleased to see you all here. Thank you.
Great, and then I think if we got Karen from Grobus on the call. Oh, Karen from Opportunity Northeast, sorry, is on the call. If you want to say hello, Karen.
Hi there. Yep, Karen Hanlon at Opportunity Northeast here. I'm delighted to be working with Scottish Edge and hosting Regional Edge up here for Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire.
That's great. Okay, and get anyone on the call from Grobus? Just checking. I don't think so. So we'll just get kicked off, but it does mean that we have someone here from Opportunity Northeast, from Elevator and from Highlands and Islands Enterprise. So any specific questions, if you are a business based in those areas, if I'm not able to deal with those questions, I will refer you to a regional partner who can hopefully help and answer any queries that you have. So we'll get kicked off. I'm going to screen share now, so hopefully Jack will let me know if I do that successfully. Okay, can everyone see that okay? Get a thumbs up. That's great. Thank you. So So just as I've mentioned, this is our application workshop, hopefully to enable you to answer any questions you may have around whether or not the Regional Edge competition is right for you and what you need to do to go through the application, and the support that we can provide you and our regional partners can provide you with to enable you to complete and hopefully win at Regional Edge. So just a little bit of background. The Regional Edge competition came about as a result of additional Scottish Government funding. They had approached Scottish Edge and said that they had some additional funding that they could give to us to support more businesses. And we had been talking as a team at Scottish Edge and as a board about trying to do more to help businesses out with the Central Belt. I think it's fair to say that we've been very successful at Scottish Edge at attracting businesses from the bigger cities, from Glasgow and Edinburgh and the areas surrounding Glasgow and Edinburgh, but we were probably getting less applications from other parts of Scotland. And in doing a little bit of research around that, we had discovered that some of the businesses we were speaking to felt that they didn't want to come into a competition where they were competing with Central Belt-based businesses. And if they were participating in the competition, they wanted to be doing that alongside the organisations that they were working with and who were supporting them in their business journey. So we took the opportunity to use that funding then to design this pilot Regional Edge programme. So we identified 4 fantastic organisations to work with. As I've mentioned already, we've got Elevator, who are covering Dundee and Angus. We've got Opportunity North East, who are covering Aberdeen and the surrounding areas. We've got Highlands and Islands Enterprise, and we've got GrowBiz, who are doing Perth and Kinross. So those organisations are going to be working alongside us, partnering with us to deliver this Regional Edge competition. Okay, apologies. I'm having problems moving my slides forward. Oh, that's happened now. Okay, so what I'm going to cover today is just a little bit about Scottish Edge. Some of you may have heard of us, some of you may not. So just to fill in the background on that. I've mentioned a little bit about Regional Edge, but I'll cover that in a bit more detail, then explain the prizes that we're offering this competition, the key dates that you need to take a note of, how to actually complete the application and what the process looks like. We'll talk briefly on how to put a video pitch together and the key aspects you need to bear in mind when you're doing that. We'll talk about how your application will be assessed at the 2 points it will be assessed. And then finally, we'll just finish off with some top tips and then some questions at the end. But as I say, you can put questions in the chat all the way through. And also, if you want to put up your hand or shout out, we can also answer questions as we go through. Okay, so a little bit about Scottish Edge. Scottish Edge has been running now for more than 10 years. It started initially at Scottish Enterprise in 2013, and then in late 2014 span out into the private sector, and an organisation called Scottish Edge CIC, a community interest company, was formed to deliver the competition moving forward. So we have now delivered 24 rounds of this competition. And the key aims of the competition are to get sums of money into early stage, high growth potential businesses to enable them to grow and hopefully to create jobs in Scotland. So the key reason Scottish Edge exists is to try and help businesses to grow a bit faster, give them easier access to money in the hope that they will then go on to create jobs in Scotland. The interesting thing about Scottish Edge is that it's not sector specific, it's open to all sectors. So we can be looking at a food and drink product alongside a life sciences product, alongside a renewable industries product. So we are happy to look at any type of business and support any type of business that is looking to grow and create jobs. As well as the funding itself, we offer feedback, we offer support, you become part of a network of Edge winners, and we have a network of support partners. And the other thing is that we are flexible funders. So you will see that we offer a mix of grants and loans to businesses. So the grants are obviously free money, not expected to be repaid, but we tie those into milestones that will help you drive your business forward. The loans we do expect to be repaid, but we're very flexible around how we treat these loans. Ultimately, the monies that come back in through our loan fund are recycled and go out to the next round of competition winners. As you can see, we've got 4 main sponsors, but we have a lot of other businesses and supporters that work with us. So far at Scottish Edge, we have assessed and processed 5,500 applications. That makes us the biggest business competition in the UK and means that I think we now think we kind of know what we're doing in terms of running competitions and assessing applications. Interestingly, one of the things that makes EDGE unique as a competition as well is that we give feedback to every business that comes, every application that comes into the competition receives feedback, and I'll talk about that a bit more. We've also supported 663 businesses today, invested over £28 million in grants and loans, and we do have winners covering all corners of Scotland and all sectors. So we do already have brilliant winners in the regions that we're going to be working with. We'd just like to have more of them. And hopefully some of the people on this call today will be those next set of winners. So a little bit more about Regional Edge. As I've mentioned, we got additional Scottish Government funding. So in total, they gave us a pot of 400,000 to be split across 4 regions and delivered by 4 regional partners. We are going to distribute the funds through the normal Scottish Edge competition process, but just branded as Regional Edge. Each region will have 100,000 in grants and loans to award, and we're anticipating that will enable us to support 5 businesses. Each of the region will deliver their own regional final and decide their own winners. And Scottish Edge will onboard Regional Edge winners as EDGE alumni, so they will be part of our EDGE alumni and will access all the same benefits that our other EDGE alumni do. The key thing that makes Regional Edge different is that if you apply, for example, in Opportunity Northeast, you are competing against the other businesses in Opportunity Northeast. You're not competing against the businesses in Elevator or Highlands and Islands. Each region's businesses are competing against each other in order to win these prizes. Now, in terms of what's available, we have a top prize of £50,000. That's a 70% loan and a 30% grant. Then we have 2 prizes of £15,000 in grants and 2 prizes of £10,000 in grants. Applicants need to select the correct region they're applying to. So when you carry out your application, you have to just tick the button as to which region you're in. And it's your responsibility to choose the correct region. We will double check the postcodes, but the region should be where your business is headquartered. So you may, for example, have created your company and registered it in England, but if your business is headquartered in Perth, then you would tick that box and you would apply to GrowBiz to be assessed within the Perth and Kinross area. Now, a question that we've had so far around the funding is, what happens if I apply for Scottish Edge, I can win £100,000. So if I'm applying for Regional Edge, I'm only able to win 50. What we're saying is that if you are successful in Regional Edge, you can still apply to Scottish Edge. So you could, in theory, apply and win £50,000 in Regional Edge, strengthen your business using that funding, and then come back into a future round of Scottish Edge and win £100,000. Similarly, if you win any of the grant awards in Regional Edge, you can still apply for the smaller grant-funded competitions within Scottish Edge. The benefit you will have is that you will have already completed an application form, so you will know how to do that within the competition, and you will already have gone through a process where you will have been given feedback and support. So actually what we're hoping is that this will strengthen the future applications to Scottish Edge from our regional applicants. Now, in terms of who can apply, I'm going to run over the eligibility now. Now, if you are applying for the top prize, the £50,000 prize, you must be a registered business entity. The reason for that is because as a lender, and Scottish Edge lends this money direct, sometimes people think because Royal Bank is one of our sponsors that the money comes from the bank. It doesn't, it comes direct from Scottish Edge CIC. We manage all of our own lending. But as a regulated organisation, we can only lend to a registered business entity. We can only lend to limited companies, social enterprises, KICs or charities. We cannot lend to sole traders or partnerships. So if you are a sole trader or a partnership, you're only eligible for the grant-only parts of the competition. So you need to be the registered business entity to apply for the top prize, or you can be the registered business entity, a sole trader and a partnership to apply for the grant-only awards. Now, we are looking to support, as I mentioned at the outset, early stage businesses who are trying to grow. So because of that, we focus on businesses that have been trading for less than 5 years. Now, sometimes what happens is people register their business a long time ago and don't start trading, and sometimes can be 6 or 7 years after they've first registered their business. If you can prove that you haven't been trading for the whole of that 5-year period, we can still support you. So the key thing is you have to have not been selling your product or service for more than 5 years. As I mentioned already, we're looking for businesses that are headquartered in Scotland and that the founder is resident in Scotland. We want people to be living and working here and paying their taxes. And if their headquarters are in Scotland, they are creating jobs in those headquarters.
Evelyn, could I ask a question now? Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
It's related to the eligibility. So we are a service-based business, but we have created a product under a separate brand, which we launched within the last couple of years. So, but obviously the company was formed 10 years ago. So I'm just wondering, do we need to create a new company in order to apply, or?
Yes, I'm afraid you would actually. Sorry, not moving enough and the lights have gone off. I'm afraid you would, because if your business is 10 years old, it wouldn't fit our eligibility criteria.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
So we're also looking for businesses that have got sales turnover of less than £1 million and have raised less than £500,000 in investment. So that's normally the situation with most of the people that are approaching Scottish Edge, but occasionally we do get bigger businesses coming in and we push them back and say this is for obviously businesses that are at a much earlier stage. We're also looking for 50% of the business ownership to be attributed to directors actively working in the business on a day-to-day basis. So really what we're not looking for is businesses that have been set up by directors who don't work in the businesses, and the businesses are staffed by people who are then applying for the grants and loans. Again, this is based on our experience. We are looking for people who are actively working and growing their businesses and are invested in this process. And then we're looking for businesses to generate an additional turnover of 200,000 over 3 years, but that's cumulative turnover. So it could be a business who's pre-trading. They don't anticipate making any sales in year 1. They anticipate making sales of £50,000 in year 2 and then 150,000 in year 3. We will also look at a longer time frame for businesses in specialist sectors. So, for example, life sciences businesses often aren't, looking for any turnover in a 3 to 5 year period. And again, we've got experience of that, so that would be allowable within the competition. So before I move on, can I just double check any other questions around eligibility?
Could I just ask, one.
Yes, Mark.
Yeah, it's just about the eligibility, that word, date. Is that measured against application date or the final date of the competition? I've got a business that is registered and we were trading from February the 6th, 2020.
We're not going to split hairs on that because, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, even if you put in an application in December, it's only a matter of weeks. So that's not an issue, Mark.
Okay.
Not at all.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll just move on. But any other questions you think of as we go along, particularly around eligibility, just stick them in the chat and I know.
I do have one
Yep.
about eligibility. I'm
Okay.
not a UK citizen, but I've lived here for 5 years. And I was wondering if that's a barrier because I talked to a lawyer and they said 4 years considered resident, and I've been here 6.5.
Right. Okay. So then we wouldn't see that as an issue. I mean, we would discuss that with you, but we have a lot of, as you can probably imagine, at Scottish Edge, we get a lot of student entrepreneurs apply for Scottish Edge. They're on very short-term visas, but we take that risk if they seem committed to building a business and working here. Then we take that risk alongside them. So yes, it's something we would chat to you about, Ellis, but no, that's not viewed as an issue. Okay, so I'll just run through the competition journey. So as I've mentioned before, this is a pilot and we weren't given a very long time to deliver it. So we were basically told by the government, okay, you need to get this all done and dusted and delivered by the end of March. So we've tried to make it as simple as possible for you and as simple as possible for us. So when you come into the competition, you select the award that you're going for, you select the region that you're based in, you then submit the application and the 3-minute video, and I'll chat about that in more detail. You then get your application reviewed by the Scottish Edge team alongside the support partners. So we will then sift through the applications, decide which ones move to the next stage, give all of the applications feedback, and then a group of businesses will then go to a live final where you will pitch for 3 minutes. You will get 13 minutes of Q&A. And then at the end of the day, you will find out if you've been successful and won Regional Edge. And you will then, if you've been successful, you will receive your trophy and then you will be onboarded in the coming weeks. So just a note about the key dates. As you know, we launched Regional Edge last week. We got the application workshop today. You have until the 20th of January to get your application in. So we also took into account that there was Christmas, and with the best will in the world, we want you all to be enjoying your dinner and your celebrations, and we don't want you to be worrying about your application. So what we felt is it would be a good idea to get this launched before Christmas, give you an opportunity to consider it, but you can then come back in early January, put your application together and get it in at 2 p.m. on the 20th of January. Now, although we always publish our application window closing dates as far in advance as possible, only about 10% of our applicants get their application in before the closing date. But it's always a good idea to be one of those 10% and not to be leaving it until 5 to 2. The other thing is that we always get people who come in after the 2 o'clock window, even at 9 o'clock the following morning, and ask to put an application in. We don't do that, so you need to get it in, and we will close the window at 2 o'clock on the 20th. And the reason for that is because we then have a short period of time to collect all the data, to make sure everybody's ticked the right boxes, and then to start the judging. So during the period, the 27th to the 31st of January, we will go through the judging process alongside our regional partners, and you will get the results on the 3rd of February. So you won't wait more than 2 weeks from submitting your application to finding out if you've moved to the next stage. As I mentioned, if you've been unsuccessful at moving to the next stage, you will still receive 6 to 8 pieces of feedback on your application. If you have been successful at moving to the next stage, you will also receive feedback on your application, but we'll get details of your regional final. Now you can see the dates of the regional finals there. So obviously if you are applying, for example, to the high competition, then it's a good idea to block that date out in your diary at this stage, because that will be an all-day event. We'll probably start in mid-morning and then we'll finish in the early evening. So at this stage, if you're coming into the competition, it's a good idea to just block out those days. If you were not, so in theory, if you applied for the competition and you weren't available to pitch on those days, we wouldn't be able to take your application forward. So important to keep that clear at this point. Okay, so let's talk about coming into Regional Edge now. As I've mentioned, we've delivered 24 rounds of Scottish Edge now, and we've spent a lot of time working on our application process. And one of the things that we've been doing for the last, I think, 14 rounds now is we do the application process online. So when you decide to apply for Regional Edge, you go to our website, click the button, and then that takes you into what we call the Scottish Edge portal. You would then go into the portal and start the application process. So when you go in, we try and ask you a little bit about you to start off with. And so if you have already applied to Scottish Edge in the past, and there may be some people in the call that have done that, then you may already have registered on the system. So you can then hit the already registered button and a lot of your details will still be there. So for example, all the basic information we ask about you, your address, your gender, company's house registration, all of that will already be there. And then all you need to do is go through it and update it. If you're a brand new applicant, then you will register as a new applicant. We will ask you to use the email address that you will access your application with, create a password, and then that means you can sign in and out of the system as many times as you like until you have completed your application. So when you go in, as I say, there are some basic details that we collect from you to start off with. And then you get to the actual application questions. And the application is split into 8 sections. And as you complete those sections, you can see, as you can see on the screen, they gradually start to complete until you get the box completely coloured in to let you know that you've done that. So it's a quick visual cue as to how you're actually getting on with your application. And as I've mentioned, you can go in and out as often as you like while you complete this. Each of the questions in your application are very clear and, we break them down into detail so you know exactly what we're looking for. We also give you a word count. Now, we do that for 2 reasons. First of all, it encourages you to be succinct in how you're explaining what's going on in your business. And secondly, it makes it easier for our judges. Most of our application forms, when they're completed, run to about 8 to 12 pages. Obviously, if you were allowed to write whatever you like, some people might only write 2 or 3 pages because they wouldn't know what the judges were looking for. Some people would write 50. So this way, it keeps everybody on track. The other thing I would say about the EDGE application process is we've designed it to be multi-use. So we are asking you questions which anyone that was funding your business would want to know the answers to. So apart from how would you utilise EDGE funding, almost all of the questions, the answers to them can be cut and pasted and used in other ways. So for example, if we're asking you to describe your team, we will ask you to talk about your team. Who in your team is responsible for the commercialisation of your business, what gaps you have in your team, who would be the first hires that you would take on. The answers to those questions could then be lifted into any application form where you had to describe your team. So the idea is that we've designed the questions and the sizes of the answers in terms of the word count to enable you to actually build up a picture of your business, and as well as use it for Scottish Edge, you're able to use it for other applications that you use, so that there is a value to completing the application and a value to going through that process. So as you'll see, we also ask you to make a video, which I'll discuss in more detail, and you would then put in your video link, a password if you had one. And then once you have completed all of those sections, and once you've got your video link uploaded and your video link password, you would then submit your application. You would get an email from us letting us know that you've done that, and you could then download your completed application so that you have a copy and we have a copy. So I mentioned I was going to chat about the video. So the video that we ask you to make is something we ask you to make on your mobile phone. So we're not asking you to make a Hollywood film, a little mini movie with lots of different people and lots of different shots. And, we're quite happy if you make a video which is just 3 minutes of you speaking to camera about your business. The point of the video is to give the judging panel an opportunity to see you as the leader of your business and to get a feel for your passion. Why are you doing this? What have you invested in this? And also, we like to see if you have a product or service that is very visual, that also gives you an opportunity to show that product or service. Or if it's a piece of software, you can use screenshots. Or if it's a service, you can have, examples of perhaps some video of you delivering that service, or some testimonials from people that have received that service. So it helps the judges to think, not just in words, but let's sort of say, it helps them to picture you, your passion, and your product or service. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. So as I say, in terms of actually shooting that video, it can be you just popping your phone up against something and then speaking to the phone and showing your product or service. However, we do have a guide to what you can cover in that 3-minute video pitch. And then if that 3-minute video pitch then leads you to pitching at the final, you then have a structure and some words that you can then use for that live pitch. So we call it 3 minutes to make a difference, and we've listed the different things that you can cover during your pitch. Now, what I would say is that we always recommend that you start with a hook, some sort of your introduction, and we recommend that you finish with an ask. But how you tackle the other aspects and the order you tackle them in is up to you. And it may be that you don't cover all of them. So, for example, if you have no traction at this stage because it's early stage, then you wouldn't cover that. You may decide not to go into competition or risks and just cover that off in your application form. But this is a good guide to how you would put your pitch together. So if I can just talk through each of these aspects briefly. First of all, an introduction or hook. So to give some examples of that, we had a business that pitched at the Scottish Edge final 2 weeks ago. And her introduction and hook was to say that a recent study carried out, I think it was by Bupa, had estimated that the average person in the UK only slept for 5.5 hours a night, and that this individual has developed a product that is assisting people with their sleep. So right away, she hooked the judging panel in, she hooked the listeners in, because we were thinking, wow, that's really awful. I didn't realise it was that bad. And what has she got that's going to make a difference to that? We had someone else who pitched, and they were pitching around gut health problems. So this particular individual discussed the percentage of people that had gut health problems in the UK, but was also able to speak about it as someone who had personally suffered from that. So was also able to bring the attention to the pitch by talking about personal experience. So these are examples where you're going in and explaining what is the problem that you're trying to address with your business. You know, what's the issue that your business will solve? So that helps to pull people in, and then you outline what your business is and the particular area that you're focusing on. So you've got a hook, you've outlined what the problem is, and then you are discussing your solution. What is it that is making your business stand out and is going to help to solve that problem? You can then go into, for example, in this case, I'll say the competition. And you may want to say there are, for example, 3 other competitors in the market, but none of them are actually delivering this particular aspect of my service. So, or you can say that there's a particular thing about your service that is drawing people in. So, you know, people are choosing your business over competitors because of X, Y, and Z, the unique elements that you have. You can then talk about market size and revenue model. Now, obviously, it doesn't help if you're saying, well, you know, this is a global market of whatever, £5 billion. That doesn't really mean anything. It's much better if you can talk about what's the addressable market for your business at this stage and how you would grow your business from that. So sometimes it's helpful just to say, we have some interest from one customer, but on the back of that customer, we're hoping that we can then secure some other customers, and that will then give us funding towards an advertising campaign that will bring in another level of customers. So sometimes I think personally, the team and I like to see a smaller approach, you know, like focusing on your sort of target addressable market and growing out from there, rather than just saying this is a massive market and I'll take 0.0005% of it, which is harder to get your head round and harder to buy into. We always like to know about who your team is, and in many, many cases, you don't have a team. In many cases, it's maybe just you and your business. But then you can talk about who you would like to have alongside you once you've got the funding to take people on. And also you can talk about your advisors. If you've got a brilliant advisor, then talk about them and the support that they're offering to you. If you've got, you know, mentors who are working with you, if you've got, you know, a family member who's an accountant and doing all your records, then you can mention the people that are working alongside you while you get your business off the ground. We then ask if you've got if your business is up and running, even if it's the early days and you're making sales, talk about the sales you're making and the traction that you've got and you know where that is taking you. And then we think it's good to finish up with an ask. In EDGE's case, you're asking for the funding and what you want the funding to do. If you were doing another pitch like this, your ask might be around support or mentorship, or you could even be pitching for employees. So the idea of you know, trying to get that ask in, sorry, I'm going to have to wave my hands again and get the lights to go on, to get the ask in at the end is important. And then it focuses the mind, or focuses the judge's mind on what you're asking for and why you're there. Does anyone get any questions about that? Jack kindly came in and switched my lights on. So
I have a quick question. Are there any limitations to what you can and can't use the funding for?
We ask that you're using the funding to drive the growth of your business. So we prefer that you're, for example, not using it for overheads. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if, for example, you said, well, I'd just like to use the funding so that I can get an office, well, what benefits is that office having to your business? Is that going to drive you forward? So really what I would say is the main reasons that people use EDGE funding is for product and service development, for staff, and for marketing, and for IP protection. So all of those things can help you move forward. So for example, IP protection could protect you so that you can move into new markets. Obviously, service development, you may have identified within your business. For example, Jules, within your business, obviously, I'm lucky I know a bit about your business. You could have identified that you should be promoting a product range. You could develop your own product range and promote that alongside the other things that you're doing. But that's going to take a bit of investment in order to do that to start off with, but that would then give you an extra source of income. And it might be that in order to do that, you also need to bring on a new member of the team who's going to be responsible for developing that product line and moving it forward. So really, when you're looking at money, just think, is that going to drive my business forward? So that's the key thing I would say.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Can I ask as well? I don't know how to
Yes.
turn on the hand button. Can we spend the prize with freelancers who are based abroad for product development rather than yeah?
Yes. We have got examples of that. It's not ideal, but we appreciate that sometimes that's the best way to get things done. We probably wouldn't want you to spend all of it on that. Because then there would be no benefit of the cash in Scotland.
Yes.
So, but we would appreciate that that's sometimes the only way forward in terms of getting something done and to move your product or service forward.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay, any other questions before I move on from this? We do on the Scottish Edge website have examples of pitch videos. So for example, the key one we've got on our website page at the moment for Regional Edge is a 3-minute video where again, it is just someone sitting in front of their laptop and they're just speaking to the camera. So a good example of just a 3-minute take of them explaining their business and why they're applying for Scottish Edge. But you can also, on our YouTube channel, there are a number of videos that you can look at to help you to structure your own video. And as I say, we tend to focus on videos that are very straightforward and easy to replicate. We have had, Hollywood-worthy videos, but that's not what we're looking for. So in terms of now going to chat about the assessment criteria. So as I mentioned, and as you will have seen when I showed the slide showing the application questions, application questions all tie into our Scottish Edge criteria. So we have 6 criteria and they are judged out of 5. So at each stage, the entire application and video is judged out of 30. So that happens at the first stage and at the final. So each of the criteria is weighted equally. So I'll just go through them quickly. So value proposition is really around, what product or service are you offering? How unique is it? Have you identified your USPs? What stage are you at with it? And have you protected it? So all of those different questions are asked in the application form. So we will have the information we need to actually then score that out of 5. We then ask you questions about your team. And as I've mentioned, that covers who's in the team, who's responsible for the different aspects of who's responsible for commercializing the product, what gaps are in the team, who would you be hiring next? All of those questions are covered there. With impact, we cover social and environmental impact. So we're looking at what social impact will you have with your business and with your product, and have you considered the environmental impact of your business and how are you dealing with that? We also ask you a question around circularity. Is there any circular aspects to your product or service? And we also ask if you're working towards any of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. So those are basically 4 key questions. Next up, we have customer focus, which is really where we're looking at who is your customer and have you engaged with them? So obviously, if you're already trading, you can tell us a bit about what you know about your customer to date. If you're not trading, then have you identified who your initial customer will be and how you will grow the business from that initial customer segment? Now, sometimes people say to us, well, you know, it's really early stage. It's just an idea at this stage. I've not really got customers. In that case, what we would be saying is, well, what research are you doing with customers to prove that what you think is a great idea and a clever idea is actually something that customers want? Because there's a certain point where people have a pain point, but it's only, there is a certain point where they will pay to get rid of that pain point, and a point where they won't, where it's not a big enough pain point. So if you've got an idea for something that's quite innovative, how do you know that that businesses or individuals will actually pay for that product or service, and that you're actually solving a product where they're willing to pay in order to, or solving a problem that they're willing to pay to be solved? So even at that early stage, you need to have some customer engagement, some conversations. We then look at business growth, and that's back to your turnover. We ask for some very basic figures over a 3-year period. What do you expect your turnover to be in year 1? What do you expect your net profit to be, and how many employees do you think you'll have? And we ask you to do that for years 1, 2, and 3. And then with utilisation of funding, that's basically how would you spend the EDGE money? So if you got the EDGE money, what would you spend it on and why? And what do you hope it will do for you? Now, as I mentioned, at the first stage, the assessors will come from the Scottish EDGE team and the organisations, the 4 regional partners. That will be a mix of men and women that are involved in that assessment, and we will look at the application form and the video together. So you never have a case where someone just assesses your application but doesn't look at your video, or vice versa. It's a package that we look at. And then we will come together for the assessment session and make the decisions on who moves to the next stage. And at the final, the assessors will be together. They will see all of the pitches, and they will capture scores and feedback during the pitching sessions, and then they will meet afterwards and decide who will be successful in winning Regional EDGE. Now, all assessors at Scottish EDGE sign confidentiality agreements. So something I did want to bring up is that sometimes people don't give us a lot of information about their product or service, or perhaps about maybe a deal that they're doing. And then they get feedback from us saying, well, we didn't know enough about, you didn't tell us enough about your product or service, or you didn't tell us enough about this potential customer you've got. And they say, oh, well, you know, I was worried about confidentiality. What I would like to say is, don't worry about that. Everybody is signing NDAs, so that's not an issue. So if you've got something exciting going on, tell us about it. You can say this is in strict confidence if you're still worried about that. But it's important to tell us the exciting things, tell us the interesting things about what you're doing, as that helps us to make the decision on how you progress in the competition. So we understand that can be a challenge for people, but I'd like to assure you that everything is watertight in terms of confidentiality within Scottish EDGE, and will be within Regional EDGE. Okay, so I think I've probably covered these points. And also what I should say is that this workshop is being recorded, so will be shared online afterwards. So if there's anything you want to come back and look at again, or any of these slides you want to come back and look at again, you can revisit that. So you can come along and have a look at these slides again. But what I would say is these little sub-questions are also on the portal. So when you're filling out the application form, it's asking you, if you like, we're giving you prompts. You know, if we say utilisation of funding and we're asking you a question, we're telling you how to answer the question, so that you're answering the question in the way that we know our judges will be looking for you to answer, to help them score you and to score you highly. Okay, so a little bit about submitting a great application. So as I've mentioned again, sometimes people are reluctant to give out the full details of what they're doing. I mean, if your business is straightforward, so for example, you're making candles or you're making bean to bar chocolate, or you're delivering a service to support people with their mental health, it can be quite easy sometimes to describe that. If you're doing something in healthcare, for example, or something in renewables that's highly technical, it can sometimes be a lot more challenging to actually describe what you're doing in a way that people understand. But that is a challenge you need to take on board. If the judges don't get your business and therefore don't score you highly as a result of that, then you have to accept that that's because you haven't explained it clearly enough. And again, don't get hooked up in thinking, well, I can't tell them too much because I'm worried about confidentiality. Tell us what we need to know to understand your business, understand what makes it unique, understand how you will stand out against your competitors, and how people will be interested in using your product or service to solve a problem that they have. So the other thing is I've mentioned, I mean, it's a great step already that you've joined this workshop today. So you're already getting to know the assessment criteria, and bear that in mind as you go along. So one thing that I've said to you is that all the assessment criteria are equally weighted. So I'm then flummoxed by people that, for example, they get to the impact questions and they just put one-line answers. Social, I'm not sure about my social. I'm not sure if there's going to be any social benefits from what I'm doing, or I haven't thought about the environmental thing yet, or no, it's not circular. No, we're not doing anything towards sustainable development goals. So they've basically then got themselves a 1 out of 5 for that section of the form, and they may have spent hours and hours on the other sections. Everything's weighted equally. So if you know the assessment criteria, then make sure that you are bearing that in mind as you answer the questions, and you're making sure that you're answering the questions in a full manner, which enables the judges to properly assess how you've addressed the assessment criteria. It's also important to outline your point of difference. And as I mentioned, acknowledge competitors. It sounds odd, but sometimes people will say, I don't have any competition for my business. It's completely unique. Even if you're going into something completely new, there's probably an alternative analog way of doing what you're doing at the moment. So you still do have a competitor, even if it's not a competitor in something extremely innovative. So acknowledging that, I think, is important. Also, if you're doing something which on the surface doesn't appear to be highly innovative, even if you've just got one point of difference, it's important to highlight that and get that out there. The other thing is around financial forecasting. As I say, we don't ask you for a whole lot of information at the initial stages. We just ask you for some headline figures. But it's important if you put down, for example, I'm going to turn over £5 million in year 3. Well, you need to tell us how on earth you're going to do that. Or if you're going to turn over 50,000 in year 3, you still need to tell us where your customers are coming from for that. So when you're putting down these figures, think about how you'll actually achieve them. And we do give you guidance on submitting your numbers, and that's something you can ask us for help with. I also mentioned about real customer engagement is great, not just stats in your sector, because real customers will tell you whether or not you've got a good idea. Explaining what you're going to spend the money on and how it will take your business forward is clear. I've mentioned about your impact intentions. Now, we know that at the outset, if you're an early stage business or a pre-trading business, then you might think, I can't really talk about impact yet because I've got nothing to say. But what you can talk about is what you intend to do. And sometimes baking in your intentions from the outset is a strong thing for you to do to improve, to build that into the DNA at the outset means that you will hopefully then take that forward rather than adding it as an afterthought. So as I mentioned, you can get a download or print out a copy of your application. So then that means that you will, if it's a few weeks later before you're pitching, you will be able to remember. what you've actually written. We also ask if you can double check the form before you submit. I mean, obviously nowadays it's very easy to spell check and grammar check information. It's a good idea to do that because you don't want your brilliant ideas and your brilliant writing to be detracted from by the fact that you've spelt lots of things wrong. Also, as I mentioned, don't leave any sections blank because every single section of the application form ties into an assessment criteria. But if you do struggle with any aspects of it, we will give additional support. So if you are neurodivergent and that is getting in the way of you completing the application, then just get in touch with us, let a member of the team know, and we will get in touch with you and see what support we can give you to help you to complete the application. And I know that's true of our regional partners as well. Any questions on that before I move forward?
Hi. I just have one question around the potential for partnerships once someone like a business wins this competition. For example, a financial institution partnership. So what is the scope for potential partnerships and any support from Scottish Edge that can push us into that direction?
I think that's probably a very specific question, Zaki. So I think that's one we would have to pick up offline. I mean, partnerships in the sense of winning work from large organisations or getting investment from large organisations is great. But if you were, for example, creating a joint venture with a large organisation, then that would take us into slightly different territory. So
Sure.
I think that's probably quite a specific question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then perfecting the video pitch. I think I've covered a lot of these, but obviously the key thing is you want to go over your passion for your business. You know, that's the key thing. The panel are getting a chance to meet you. You want to leave them with an impression that you're really excited about what you're doing. You want to try and show your product or service if you can. If you can involve your team, you know, even if they're with you in the video or your customers, even if you've got some customer testimonials. I've mentioned we were happy with it just to be a very straightforward video. And your application form and video make up your combined submission. So you don't need to repeat everything in your application form on your video. It can be separate to that. We ask you to use the unlisted option on YouTube. So you need to give yourself plenty of time for uploading. So if you make your video 2 or 3 days before you submit your application, upload it at that point, you know, and then that way you're not at 2 o'clock on the day it's due to be in, trying to work out how to unlist it and get the link to upload it. So we've had a number of panicked calls over rounds with that YouTube aspect being the thing that is really holding people up at the last minute. So if you, as I say, have your video ready, get it uploaded, and then that way you can relax a bit. And then lastly, watch your video back before you submit it. We've seen many videos where people have cut off their heads, and whilst it, you know, we all fall about laughing initially, we then have to watch it back to see if we can hear the voice. You don't want to be doing that to yourself. So please watch it back and give yourself time to film your video and submit it as well. We once very memorably got a video that was made by someone where he started it in the office, carried it on in the tram, then on the bus on the way home, and then finished it up in his kitchen so that he could get it in time. It was when we used to have applications were due in at 10 o'clock at night. So don't be that person where you're reduced to making your video on the commute on the way home. Right, and then in terms of winner and applicant benefits,
I'm gonna go back to the YouTube. Like, where would unlisted be? I've not ever really used YouTube before.
Yeah, again, we've got the details of that are on our website, so that explains how to do it. So, as I mentioned, you will receive feedback to help you with your business. So whether you progress or not, you will get feedback on your first stage application, and you will also get feedback on your final pitch as well. All winners of Regional Edge will receive a support package. So we work with 7 different partners: Harper McLeod, Johnson Carmichael, James Hallam, Scintilla. They all offer support packages to our winners, so you've got the benefits of those as well. And then you will also become part of our EDGE alumni. So there are more than 500 EDGE winning businesses across Scotland. We have regular alumni events. So we have, we call them EDGE alumni parties. We have a couple of parties a year where alumni get together to chat to each other, to network, to eat and drink, and get to know each other. And then there's more support as well. So we like to think it's not just the money at Scottish Edge. You will also benefit from the other elements of support that we offer. Okay, now your key contacts at Scottish Edge are as follows. So my colleague Kevin, who's actually, he's on holiday today, which is why I'm running the workshop, but Kevin and I are co-delivering this, but he is the key point of contact. And then we have, contacts in Opportunity Northeast, in Highlands and Isles Enterprise, in GrowBiz, and in Dundee and Angus. So if you can take a note of your regional contact, that would be helpful. In some cases, as I say, we will be able to support you with your with any questions you have, but in other cases, it will be our regional partners who will deliver support. Okay, so now we're at questions. So this is the EDGE team, and, as you can see, there's 7 of us. So we're not the biggest team in the world, but we like to think we're one of the most helpful teams. So hopefully we can support you as you go through this process, or if we can't support you, our lovely regional partners will support you. Okay, so it's now time to ask questions, and if you want to ask any specific questions, you can put those in the chat. And if you want just a specific answer back to you, we can do that. Or any general questions about the process, I'm more than happy to answer.
Evelyn, I'll just take a couple from the chat here. We've got through most of them, and I think it was quite quiet. Everyone was quite brave and turned on their mics, so we've gotten through a fair bit. But there was one that came in just saying, I'm sorry, I don't understand about everything weighted equally in marketing criteria, I think, for example. So I think that's just more about how everything's weighted in terms of how we measure criteria and against the questions.
Yeah, it's just really that, we've got 6 assessment criteria, and we just decided the easiest thing for the judges and for the applicants was to have them weighted equally. So in that case, what I'm saying is that if you look at value proposition, it's scored out of 5, impact scored out of 5, utilisation of funding is scored out of 5. So everything is just scored out of 5, and then you've got an overall score of 30. Now in the Scottish Edge competition, and obviously I can't talk for Regional Edge because this is the first time we've done this, but typically you would need to score 23 out of 30 to progress any further. So typically your scoring would be quite high, and that a 23 out of 30 would then enable you to move to the next stage.
Thank you. And so this one's in relation to the video specifically, as opposed to the application where you specify this. But in the video, would you be expected to state how much you're applying for, or is it just assumed that everyone's going for the bigger prize?
No, you would need to. What happens is when you start the Regional Edge process, you have a box where you tick whether you're going for the 50,000 or whether you're going for the smaller grant. So
Yeah.
you're ready.
Sorry, Evan, I think it's for the video specifically, in your pitch video. Would you mention it in there?
Yes, because I think at the end of your pitch, it's quite good to say, I would like, if Scottish Edge could support me with, say, £15,000, it will enable me to carry out some detailed market research and, contribute towards product or service development and get me in a position to launch my business in 3 months' time, for example. So I think it's nice to end your pitch, your video pitch, by saying what you're looking for and what it will enable you to do.
Perfect, thank you. So that's all from the chat. If anyone has a question and wants to turn on their mic, please do it. Another one coming in the chat there just saying, would I be considered for other prizes? I'm not sure what the context, if that's within Regional Edge or Edge.
So I think back to that again, what we would be, what we're keen is that people that come into Regional Edge will then hopefully have a positive experience of Edge and will then consider entering into the Scottish Edge competition. I mean, ultimately, I'm just being honest about that. It would be great if the people come into Regional Edge, then it then shows them that, you know, how to complete the form, the feedback you get, and then if you are unsuccessful at Regional Edge, you will consider coming into the Scottish Edge competition. We're also, of course, hoping that this is a successful pilot, and I know our partners are hoping this is a successful pilot and we'll be able to run it again in a year's time. We don't anticipate, like Scottish Edge, it will be a biannual competition. It's likely to be an annual competition if we're successful in running it again in the future.
Apologies, I should have been more specific. It was the question of if I say I would like, you know, that's what I'm going to do with £15,000. Would I be still considered for 10,000 prize or for the 50,000 prize?
Yes, yes, you would be. Yes, at this stage we're looking at, we would, you know, there will be obviously people that are going for the 50,000, but we might think you're not quite ready for that yet, but would consider you for the smaller amount.
Thank you.
Yep, so just one came in there just about I think regional variance and specifics around that. So we are based in One Tech Hub Aberdeen. Can I please check that we are eligible? We are interested in applying for the pre-trading 15K. Please can you advise about other eligibility and eligibility criteria? So I think I'd imagine if
I think if the One Tech Hub is the headquarters of that business, then absolutely they're eligible for the Opportunity Northeast competition that we're running.
Okay. Yep. So nothing else in the chat. If anyone has anything else.
And just to say that we tie the eligibility around the headquarters, not where you're trading. So, for example, we do have businesses that have been supported by Scottish Edge who trade entirely overseas. So we've got some that trade entirely in America, some that trade entirely in Africa. So it's not where you're selling your product, it's where your business is based, because where your business is based is where you are creating jobs and where you're paying taxes. So that's the thing that's key. Sorry,
can I also ask about the conditions of the grant? Oh, sorry, of the loan. Sorry.
Okay, in terms of the conditions of the loan, so the loan is repaid over a period of up to 5 years. There is an interest rate on the loan. It's a 5% flat rate. And that is reduced. So, for example, so that's levied over the length of the loan. But if, for example, you took the loan over 5 years, but you paid it over 3 years, you wouldn't pay the remaining interest on that loan. So, and the opposite of a penalty for early repayment, you actually benefit from early repayment. We're also flexible with the loan in that if your business isn't trading when you win and you're maybe 6 months to a year away from trading or even longer, you can pay a tiny amount towards the loan until the business is actually trading. So we usually recommend you only pay maybe £50 a month towards the loan until the business is generating income and can pay more. So we try to be as flexible as possible in how we deal with the lending. Does that answer the question?
Yes. Is it 5% per annum, like in the bank, or is it 5% on the total amount?
What we do is we The 5% flat rate is levied at the outset of the loan. It's almost more like an admin fee. So, for example, we would levy that at the outset of the loan, but if you took 10 years to pay the loan back, it wouldn't change.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. So one came in just, are you able to read through applications before submission? And that's just a yes, because it's tab format and they're checked off as you go through them, but you can revisit them at any point before pressing the submit button.
Yep.
Okay. And can you confirm the important dates, such as the date of the final? So those run from the 20th of February to the 6th of March, depending on your location. I think we've got a slide further back in this. It's got the specific dates in them, so you'll get those in the recording afterwards for your region. And nothing else in the chat?
Yeah, and with the final as well, if you can't pick that up from the recording, just get in touch with your local partner. I did give the details of your local partner and they will keep you right on the finals. But as I say, it's important to, sort of block off that date at this stage just in case. But please bear in mind that you will know within 2 weeks of submitting your application if you're moving to the next stage. And then if you're not, you can release that date. So we try and keep things moving at pace as we go through the process. Can I just check from our lovely partners on the call if there's anything you want to add or anything you think I've missed? Because obviously we've all been chatting about this for months now, but now we're finally in it and running it. So
I think it's been really comprehensive, Evelyn, and I think, yeah, for everyone, go back and have a look at the slides again. All the information that you need is there. And I think, certainly from my perspective, I'm happy to speak to anybody that's within Dundee and Angus that wants to have a chat about it, and my contact details are on the slides as well. So thanks, Evelyn and Jack.
That's great. Thanks, Kat.
Yeah, likewise. I think this has been really comprehensive. There's a lot of information in there to digest. I think, watching over the recording, having the slides afterwards is really valuable. But I mean, the website is just incredibly useful in terms of the resources that you have on there to guide applicants. So I think it's a great process. And again, as you've said, Evelyn, it's about not leaving it till the last minute to get your application in, because we find we get a lot of disappointed people because they leave it right to the last minute. Don't do that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Caroline. And I think that's one of the things I would say is that if you can plan, so for example, if you want to get some feedback on your application, plan to have it ready at least a week beforehand, so getting in touch with Kat or getting in touch with me 3 hours before it's due to be submitted, asking us to have a look at it is never, it's never going to work. So if you're looking for feedback, then try and build that into the process as well. The other thing is that we have a lovely EDGE community of winners. And, some of you will know EDGE winners, and what we always ask EDGE winners to pay it forward. So you can also ask people that have been through the process in the past to have a look at your application for you. And we know a lot of our applicants do that. And it's a nice ask for people. And it's one that usually people are happy to do. So that's something to bear in mind as well. I think we got a question in there about someone saying they were looking at moving to be a limited company. Should they do that before applying? It depends what category you're applying for. If you want the bigger award, the loan and grant, then you need to be a limited company to apply for that. If you're going for the smaller award, it doesn't matter, because we were happy to give out grants to sole traders and partnerships as well as limited companies. So it's really down to you, down to the award that you're applying for. Okay, well, it's night time in Glasgow now at 3:45, sadly. So the lights are on, the Christmas lights are on. So I think it's probably time for me to wrap things up. Thank you so much for coming along today. Thanks for all your interesting questions and for your attention today and for your interest in Regional EDGE and in Scottish EDGE. And really excited to be reading your applications in a few weeks' time. But in the meantime, have a lovely Christmas. Well, hopefully see some of you at the finals. So take care.
Bye.
Thank you.